focusing on three things we learned from around the Premier League. I'm going to go first. I put my thoughts and my sort of details about what it was like to be in stadiums with fans again up on ProSoccerTalk on NBCSports.com. For me, it was, as we said, heartwarming and brilliant to have it back in a very safe and controlled manner. But it was really cool to see fans experience what journalists have been experiencing for the last few months in terms of, I was sat at Tottenham, North London derby against Arsenal. There were some Spurs fans sat about 10 seats behind me, and they were treating it as if it was a Sunday league pub game. It was, the one guy behind me was telling Sergio Red, there's a man on your shoulder, look left, hold the line. Gareth, get stripped, you're coming on soon, son, and like things like this. And it was great to see, and Bale laughed back at him, and there was a real connection, I think, between the fans that were there and the players, and probably a greater connection given everything that's gone on and how long we've gone without fans inside stadiums. So it was really cool to see that greater appreciation. And for me, it felt safe. I felt myself looking around thinking, how is this going to work? In Stamford Bridge, it seemed really loud because there were 40,000 capacity stadium, 2,000 fans in there. It's quite enclosed, whereas Tottenham's quite vast. Obviously, an extra 20,000 seats. Didn't feel quite as loud, but it was still good. Don't get me wrong. So it's going to be interesting to see how it can develop now, how the tier system goes in the UK. 4,000 fans are allowed in. And I know the Premier League's doing a great job. They're sort of over preparing for what's needed under UK government restrictions. They're saying you have to wear masks at all time, where in the lower leagues you don't have to do that if you're sat down. They're saying temperature checks, lots of other things in and around the stadium. So they're being ultra cautious. There's a lot of messages over the PA system and on screens to remind fans. So I felt very safe in the stadiums with fans being back, albeit in a small number. And I think looking around, I was saying to myself, I could easily fit 15 to 20,000 people in Stamford Bridge, and then maybe even a few more at Tottenham Stadium, and be okay with that from a very controlled manner. So I loved it. It was an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be there with fans. It has been a privilege to be there with no fans and to get that, behind the scenes look. But there's no doubt that it's so much better hearing that banter and the chants, and Chelsea's fans heckling the Leeds players throughout was another highlight, I guess you could say. And I think even the Leeds players who were getting heckled enjoyed having someone there to watch them play again. So, Nick, I know you enjoyed some of the big performances from some of those really good attacking units this weekend, didn't you?
I did. And what's interesting to me is we always talk about chances generated. And in terms of Chelsea and Man City, these are two teams that have been doing it for a couple of years now. Joe, you famously pointed out a few times last year, rightly so, that if Chelsea just had some finish, maybe they would have been significantly higher up on the table, not just a little bit. And when Pulisic slid that ball into the goal, I got excited to make some attacking notes. I thought, this is what we're going to talk about this week. And then I went back and looked at the numbers. The numbers are fine. The defense is incredible. Both Chelsea and Man City in the Champions League have allowed one goal each in the group stage. Liverpool in a tougher group has allowed, attacking-wise, has allowed two. And then you look at the Premier League numbers, and both Man City and Chelsea have maybe quietly really, really put it together. City has allowed 4 goals since the draw against Leeds. Chelsea has allowed 2 since the 3-3 with Saints. I mean, they're figuring it out. And yes, they had maybe the easiest schedules of the big teams that were going into the congested period. But given how many matches were on the docket, guys, how they've done, how Spurs have done, how Liverpool's done, super impressive.
Very impressive. And I think you mentioned that the attacking lineups these teams have, we focus on that a lot because there's so many superstar players, and we will focus on it later on today on Pro Soccer Talk. But it's to me, Edouard Mendy coming and go for Chelsea has been brilliant, and then Diaz at City obviously has it's been brilliant. I mean, those are two players where you can clearly see that everyone around them is a lot more comfortable defensively. So yeah, it's amazing how much difference one player can make, right? I mean, Andy, I know you're going to talk about how much difference quite a few players can make because Liverpool keep churning out great results, even though they're missing so many star names.
Yeah, they are. And I think Jurgen Klopp is doing just a fantastic job with this team at the moment, kind of getting them day by day. It's not a game by game thing. It feels like it's day by day in between those games. I think it's probably time for everybody to just be absolutely terrified of Liverpool again at this point. The run of results that they're on at the moment, ever since they drew 2-2 with Everton in the Merseyside derby, they have been on an absolute tear. And I was looking at some of the numbers after their just absolutely dominant win over Wolves, 4-0 at Anfield on the weekend. Fans back in the stadium, welcoming the champions for the first time ever, as Premier League champions. And so I looked at some of the numbers. Just 4 goals conceded in the last 6 Premier League games since Virgil van Dijk went down with his injury. It began immediately after that injury. I think Klopp had to figure out something a little bit different tactically. They had to strike a better balance between attack and defense. In the 6 games before, in the 5 games before Van Dijk got injured, 14 goals conceded. That's very, very impressive, but even more so, 4 clean sheets in those 6 games. It's not just that they're limiting the number of goals, it's that they're not giving up goals. They've given up 2 goals during that time. It's so impressive what they're doing at the moment with considering the number of players that are out. How many teams would lose 1 or 2 of those caliber players and their season would crumble? Liverpool have lost 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, and it just doesn't matter.
It's brilliant to see. I mean, some of the youngsters coming in, Kelleher in goal, that was pretty cool to see such a young kid coming in and making key saves at big moments and just being controlled and coming out for crosses. And Curtis Jones, Neco Williams, that next generation there in Liverpool. It's impressive to see that Klopp has that much faith in them now, and maybe he always did, but no one else seemed to. So there's a real continuation there. And Liverpool, if they don't win the title, they're going to be there or thereabouts this season because their squad is strong. They're through in Europe, so now they can focus on the league. And a few weeks ago, I don't think many of us would have said that because of the amount of injuries to key players, especially at the back. So you got to give Liverpool a massive pat on the back for coming through this, right, Nick?
Yeah, and I was going to say, just look ahead to their festive fixtures, and we know that can be chaos for everyone, but there's one big game on their schedule. One. And it's Spurs on a Wednesday in a couple of weeks. But after Michelin tomorrow, it's Fulham, Palace, West Brom, before 2 genuine contenders in Newcastle and Saints. So, literally, joking aside, by the time they get to January 2nd at St. Mary's, depending on how they navigate the Tottenham challenge, where are you seeing them not taking points?
Yeah, they are, for many people, I think, the clear front runners, even though Tottenham fans maybe wouldn't agree with that right now. But, along with Man City, who are just ominously clicking through the gears. Andy, I know that's something you spoke about, write them off at your peril a few weeks ago. So you were big on Man City, and now we're seeing, as Nick mentions, Chelsea, City, Liverpool, Tottenham. We could have a 5 or 6 horse title race here. And I'm not going to mention what Mourinho said about Spurs being a pony, because they do look like a thoroughbred at the moment, the way they're just getting past teams, getting the job done, and then Kane and Son up front are obviously the X factor for Spurs. So
Joe, I saw Mourinho in the press conference, you apologized for the pony line, and he said it was okay. So he's accepted your apology. That's a big thing.
I know. I felt bad because I asked Mourinho about what kind of horse for Tottenham in this title race, and then for the last week, he's basically become an equine expert here in the UK. Every interview he's done, he's been asked about horses and jockeys, and so it was good to at least. Maybe I'll bring it up later in the season when we get a bit further in the final furlong, shall we say, of the Premier League title race. Yeah, so. That's what we learned in the Premier League this week. A lot's going on. The title race, everyone's jockeying for position. I'm going to stop with the horse racing analogies now. But it's a very exciting time as we head in towards that busy, festive period across the Premier League.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe. Make sure you subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and always join us every weekend at 7 a.m. on NBCSN for Premier League mornings. Plus, make sure you subscribe to Peacock Premium as well, where you can watch exclusively live 175 games and same-day on-demand replays of all 380 Premier League matches as well.